Hi everyone, it's Roy from Tallneck. Before we get started with the video, I just wanted to say this video is sponsored by me and my website, tallnecktech.com. I have new builds in the Height X50 and the Thermaltake Tower 300. So if you're looking for a cool new build, please check out my website. I also have builds available in the Fractal Terra, the Fractal North, and the Fractal Pop Air Mini. So with that out of the way, just wanted to take a little bit more time to talk about some things that are going on in home computing, the DRAM shortage that's ongoing, and a couple of other things. At the moment, there is a contract between OpenAI, which is the parent company for ChatGPT, and Samsung and SK Hynix, which are two of the largest RAM providers for the consumer market. And the result of that contract is that most of the RAM produced by two of the largest distributors is going to those companies. The price of RAM has skyrocketed to something like 200 to 250% of what it was just about 3 or 4 months ago. I used to be able to get 32 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM for about $90 before tax from Micro Center, and that same stick of RAM is costing upwards of $400. And this is RAM without RGB or anything fancy. It's not even particularly fast RAM, just DDR5 RAM. There are some increasing costs to building home computers. I don't really buy parts in bulk, partially because I think buying parts in bulk is part of what gets us in these jams in the first place. I don't know if everybody remembers, but when the NVIDIA RTX 5000 series dropped, people were hoarding graphics cards, and it caused the price of graphics cards to go up. And I think we're in a similar situation now where the price of parts is rising, not just because of lack of availability, but because people are hoarding parts. Truthfully, I think if I wanted to make money, I would also just start buying parts in mass, but I feel like it's a dishonest way to do business. I try to only take what I need and not much more. What are my thoughts on the DRAM shortage, on AI and data centers eating up manufacturing plants, making graphics cards more expensive, making RAM more expensive, and where does that really leave home computing and my website and people who build, boutique computers for people? So my thoughts are that these costs are kind of like on a merry-go-round, and that it seems like as soon as one ends, another shortage begins. So I think that we're going to experience what is essentially a never-ending shortage of something, right? Because there's only so many fabrication facilities in the world. Most of them are either in Shenzhen, China, or Taiwan, right? TSMC. So there's only a handful of these fabs. There's talk about building some more in other places, like in the US, in other places, but at least for now, we really only have so many fabs. So I think that so long as companies are willing to pay more for these AI chips, for DRAM, that it's not the same as consumer DRAM, but it functions similarly, that we're going to be in a shortage, in a perpetual shortage of something. So it's going to make it very hard to figure out what things cost, which is kind of like what it was like when the RTX 5000 series dropped. So what does that mean for me or for anybody trying to build a computer? Well, I think that means that there's going to be an incentive to build things that are maybe meant to be upgraded, is my sense. Maybe you can build a computer that only has one stick of RAM, or that the ability for a build to last maybe something like 10 to 15 years is going to be more valuable. But I also think it's going to have the opposite effect, that people are going to choose to go with pre-made things. The Steam machine is supposed to release sometime next year, and I think if Valve plays their cards right, that's also going to eat into the boutique computer business, because there are a lot of people who just buy PCs to play Steam games. So there's that. I still think that there are some ethical issues with data centers that extend beyond the data centers themselves. There's a wonderful documentary by, I believe it's A More Perfect Union, about a data center and the effect that it's having on the local environment, on the people who live there. And the gist of it is that we don't really have the resources to sustain these data centers. It's not even, are they a useful technology, or are they not? Obviously, they're useful, they're cool, but we don't have the resources, we don't have the energy grid that other places in the world have, like China, to make these things sustainable in the long term. So what are we doing right now here in the United States? Well, we're diverting power in our energy grid to large data centers. We're taking away computing parts and access to things from consumers and moving them towards big companies. And we're making it very hard for people to afford things that used to be affordable. So you kind of put all of this together, right? Electricity is more expensive, RAM is more expensive. It doesn't necessarily bode well for small business owners, for people who are in computing and who like to do things. And I've taken this as a sign to maybe slow down and try doing other things. I've been making some things in SketchUp that I thought would be kind of fun and exciting to sell, and I'll introduce those probably somewhere down the line this year. I'm working on some planters that look like PC cases, because what really started my site was the Fractal Terra and how naturalistic and nice it looked. And that's the PC that just continues to keep selling for me. I think the value of maintaining what people already have has definitely increased. Fixing your computer and just kind of trying to ride it out until either AI releases its grip on the PC manufacturing industry or we get more fabs. But just kind of as a person, not as a business owner, not as a consumer, I have general concerns about the sustainability of everything, of computing, of data centers, of all of this stuff. And I'm worried that if it doesn't either slow down or address the environmental impact, the electricity needs, the very multifaceted problems that AI and data centers have created, we're going to accelerate some damage to the environment that isn't going to be undoable. You know, it's not going to be fixable. And I don't see very many people talking about it. I don't see it in my daily life. I don't really see people I work with talking about it. And everyone recommends AI to use, you know, no matter what job you're doing. I see it recommended in education and in programming and 3D mock-ups, artistry. But the cost of it is energy, is electricity, and especially in the US, where the majority of our energy is produced by burning fossil fuels. We don't really have the luxury of building these data centers and then running them off of a sustainable energy source. You know, and that's even foregoing how much water it takes to cool a data center, which apparently I've heard is quite high. The kind of space that data centers take up, what they do to the towns that surround them, both in terms of noise pollution, air pollution, water pollution. But they're using energy, power, resources on a scale that we really haven't seen in the past. And I love computing, I love electronics, I think they're super fun. And I see AI as kind of like, it's a thing that is really cool, but not something that it can be used, you know, haphazardly. I think we need to be a lot more intentional about AI and how we're going to allow it to impact our energy grid, um, and what kind of choices we're going to make. Um, this is not meant to be taken as a knock to anybody on any side of the political spectrum, but there is there is a push from one party to burn fossil fuels at all costs for the foreseeable future, essentially forever. And I think that the result of that will be the assured harming of the climate. It will make air pollution worse, climate change worse. It will get, progressively worse and harder to manage. And when you combine that with how energy intensive data centers are, it really doesn't paint a very pretty picture. I mean, I'm sorry to kind of like bear the bad news here, but if we are gung-ho on AI, and it does seem like the people with the money are very dedicated to AI, we need to take seriously that we can't run it using fossil fuel. We need forms of renewable energy, air, solar, hydroelectric, potentially nuclear, which, has its own issues. Every form of energy does. And it doesn't seem like they're going to do that. It doesn't seem like they're interested in doing that. And that's like deeply concerning for me as someone who's thoughtful in that way and thinks about the longevity of things. And I hope that in the near future we have a bit of a reconciliation with the reality of these things. The cost of AI, the environmental cost, the energy cost, the cost it's having on the PC market, on the electronics market in general, because semiconductors are in everything. And so long as AI and AI data centers are hoarding those resources, it's gonna get more expensive to purchase anything. Just this last weekend, the video game industry, which depends largely on RAM to sell consoles, right? Nintendo, Sony, excuse me, Microsoft, they collectively, the three big companies took a 17% hit as a result of the DRAM shortage. And that markets fluctuate, things change, but 17% in a couple days, that's bad, right? That's not like normal market fluctuations. Not that anything has really been super normal about the market, but AI is, as a result of its resource hungriness, its power hungriness, its need to just kind of consume essentially what is most of the semiconductor RAM and energy market, has made life more expensive. Like, it's just more expensive to be alive. And me personally, I don't really think AI has improved my life all that much. I've used Midjourney to make a couple of images. I've asked it some questions about code, but I don't really think it's worth making everything from electricity to refrigerators and computers and eggs and things more expensive, just so that way we can ask a chatbot things that we probably could have figured out on our own. So I'm having some personal trouble reconciling with the ethicality of these new technologies And I just wanted to talk about it in a relaxed way. So if I was to leave anyone who's still watching at this point with like a final thought, it's you can't really put the cat back in the bag, right? The data centers are already built, they're here. And a lot of these technologies they're not gonna go away. So what can we do as consumers, as people, to be ethical about our use of them when the people who own them aren't interested in ethicality, really? They're in a different headspace. And my thought is, we can't depend on the people at the top, the Sam Altmans, the Bezoses, the Musks, to make ethical decisions, because if we could, we wouldn't kind of be in the situation that we're in. I think computing kind of has to change from the perspective of building things that are as powerful as they can be, to building things that are reasonably powerful, energy efficient, and built to last. And it's up to us to value repair over power to some extent. And energy efficiency is something that a lot of people don't talk about. In computing, energy efficiency usually comes down to what are you willing to go without in a build, and what's important to you, and how much are you willing to invest in a power supply that's fairly energy efficient. So I've been thinking about updating my site to have energy efficiency ratings for each build, which would take some time, but if anyone is interested in that, please let me know. And I think there is, as things get more expensive, going to be increasing value in things that are built to last. So I'm still doing builds, still interested in building computers for people. I currently have a deal on my site until the end of December, where if you purchase a computer from me, you get, I believe it's a free Royal Kludge 65. I might have to double check that, but if you are interested in a build, please check my site. If any of these thoughts were interesting to you, please sub to my channel. I go back and forth between more of these conversational bits and doing builds. And as always, I hope you guys are having a wonderful December and a great holiday season. I will see you guys soon.